Hello, folks. Welcome to one of my new segments here on the channel, and that is Movie Watch. Yeah, every month I'm going to sit down and let you know what movies I've seen at the cinema, or maybe I watched them at home and I just haven't got around to seeing them yet, missed theatrical release. And I'm going to talk about my thoughts and sort of rough ideas of what I thought about them and whether I like them or not. Maybe I'll give them a rating. Who knows? We'll find out. Yeah, folks, this is a new segment here. I'm going to start doing a whole range of reviews and reactions and things like that. I'm a big fan of movies. I'm a big fan of television shows that don't get cancelled. Looking at you, Sony, about the Wheel of Time. But I was like, I should share that with you. I love movies. It's a thing I really enjoy. So here we go, folks. I'm going to tell you what I watched last month. What did I watch in May? I watched a lot of things in May, if I'm honest. But the movies I wanted to talk to you about, there's just four. I'm going to kick it off with probably my favorite movie that I watched last month in terms of new movies, and it was Thunderbolts. Yeah, I went to see this opening week, and I did not regret seeing this whatsoever. This is an awesome piece of artwork I found that I just wanted to share with you quickly. I will put a link to said person's artwork in the description, so please go check them out. But yeah, I absolutely loved this movie. It was so much fun. Florence Pugh is just, she is just the best. I don't think I've seen anything she's ever been in that I was like, not sure I like that. Um, and it was just great. David Harbour is brilliant, and Sebastian Stan, he's a solid bet. No matter what I see him, and he's always pretty great. But yeah, this movie was wonderful. So here's the classic clip here that I think a lot of us have seen. This is. I'm not going to give you full spoilers, folks, but I may dabble in a few bits here and there because I'm going to show images and things that may give things away. But I'm not going to sit here and tell you the whole story. So don't worry about that. But this is obviously when the big bad moment of the movie is happening, and they're like, "Oh, we screwed." David Harbour's face right here is just perfect. He's like, "Oh." But yeah, it's just this group of misfits. I I wasn't ready for. I love the original Avengers. I'm a huge Captain America fan. I have a shield, the whole 9 yards, but I wasn't ready for how much this group of misfits that start fighting each other grow on me, and just there is just something magical about it. And I love the tone of the movie. The tone of the movie is so much more about, you know, emotional attachment, emotional situations, the trauma. I recently seem to have developed an interest in movies and television shows that deal with trauma. Maybe it's a side of growing old. I don't know. But I've grown to appreciate not just trauma for the sake of trauma, but trauma that's well written, that gets, not necessarily resolved, but gets attention, like doesn't get ignored and swept under the rug, and there's a conversation had about it, and it's represented. The it's a different journey for everybody. And admittedly, if I had Florence Pugh come and grab me and be like, "It's okay, Rob, you're fine," I think I would feel better. Obviously, but this movie deals with a lot of those sorts of themes, and it really touched me. I think Marvel, they've had some rocky years. Like, I've not watched every single one. In fact, as you finish watching this video, you'll see that I've now gone and caught up on a few as a result of watching Thunderbolts, because I think they finally found something they've been missing, and it's Florence Pugh and David Harbour and Sebastian Stan. Like those three together for some reason were just brilliant, and the others in the background having their moments to shine and such is brilliant. It was an interesting choice with I forget the name of the character, but like on the posters and then killed very early on. It's very, I think, for anyone who's paid any attention has realized this has happened. But yeah, they are, as has been revealed as well, the new Avengers, and all the that goes with that, the chaos and such. I didn't realize until I watched the movie later, and I'll tell you about that, how that worked in the MCU world. But yeah, it's just the Red Guardian here, and Florence's the character is just so good, so good. I love his excitement. David Harbour is like, yes, and he's so cheerful and so excited about being, just as being a superhero, and I love it. So yeah, the movie didn't end quite how I expected it. That's not a bad thing. It's a good thing. It didn't quite. I thought it was go this way, and it went that way, and I'm like, that's still great. Love that. And yeah, the ending, post credit scenes, and all of this sort of stuff is brilliant. So I really, really enjoy this. I feel like Marvel has, you know, a lot of people say like, oh, they've fixed it, and then they dropped, and they fixed it, and then they dropped, like they say about these movies. I think they've established their base. They've brought it back a little bit. They've sort of they had a lot that they were doing, and the TV shows and how they work within things. And I think Thunderbolts has brought back the mainstream viewer who's not going to go and watch every single movie and every single TV show and all those things. So yeah, kudos to Thunderbolts, absolutely brilliant. I do want to give one last shout out about this movie to this character right here. This character, his name is Bob. And the reason I want to give a shout out to Bob, and he's been asked this in interviews, is if you have seen the Top Gun Maverick movie, which I did watch when it came out, not in the cinema, I watched it later on, and I appreciate it. I thought it was a good movie. I'm a fan of Miles Teller, so I enjoyed it. Regardless what you think of Tom Cruise, it was a solid movie. He's in that movie too, and he plays this character here, whose name is Bob. So he's been in two, I would say, very successful movies, and he's been Bob both times, and I love it. And I saw an interview when they told him his name. He said like, can you call me something else? I was Bob in the last movie. Can I have a different name? Some people get typecast into, you know, the Joker, the comedian, the blow shit up kind of guy, whatever, Arnold Schwarzenegger and his, you know, original movies and things. I've never seen anyone typecast into a name. But maybe it's finally happening. But he's not getting typecast into a character because he was a little comedic in Top Gun, this character here. But the one he plays in Thunderbolts is much more serious, and he has a lot of the weight of telling the story of trauma on his shoulders, and it's very, very, very well delivered. I love that. So let's go on to the next movie I watched, which was The Final Reckoning. So this is what, the 300th movie in the Mission Impossible franchise? Don't know. I think it's actually like the 10th movie. I think 8th movie. I don't know. It's been a lot of movies. It's up there with like Fast and Furious, but it's been going much, much longer. I do enjoy the Mission Impossible movies. It's always, there's, you know, crazy stunts, obviously, you know, in very convoluted stories and ways of doing things and masks and, you know, all those spy tricks that no one actually uses. It's fun. They're always good. They're dramatic, and I enjoy them. So I was like, you know what, I really enjoyed the Dead Reckoning one that pre-crewed this, like the first half of these two-part movies, and I was like, I want to go see it. So I went and saw it. And Tom Cruise, it starts off, the idea of the movie is it sort of like pulls some of the, because not every single, you know, Mission Impossible movie is kind of flowed together. There's been a couple like, you know, there's weird things in there, like that kind of like felt like a loose thread, or that you know, that felt like its little bubble story that didn't really connect to the rest of the world. This begins with like a nostalgic look back on not all the movies, but you know, like where he's come from, Ethan Hunt, and it just pulls in some of those stranger threads, and it just tightens up the entire legacy of the movies a little bit. At least it did for me. I was watching this and I was like, okay, so I'm feeling nostalgia, I'm feeling the history, I'm feeling a tightening of the story and the threads, so that, you know, there's a bit of interweaving through the previous movies, which obviously was not the original intention. You can tell when you watch them that they were like, this was not written for like the 4th or 5th movie to come into fruition in the 8th or 10th or whatever 500 movie this is now. And but it worked well. It was, you know, it was done enough that it didn't feel forced in there for the sake of forcing it in there. There's a little bit of that, but not enough to put me off. You know, I did enjoy that. And it's a good movie. It's a satisfying ending to the saga. Who knows whether it actually ends? He loves making these movies, he said in the interview. So I'm sure if he gets the opportunity and a good story, he'll keep doing them. For me, what I really loved was, it felt like he paid respect to some of the characters that had been there. There was mention of characters from earlier movies. Obviously, we've got, characters we see here that were in Dead Reckoning just before. And, Simon Pegg's been in there for like 4 movies now. And I apologies, forget the guy who plays Luther. Obviously, he's, in this as well. And it felt, for the first time, it felt like Tom Cruise's character, Ethan Hunt, was standing back and giving away a little bit of the responsibility and sharing some of the, because he's the hero. They're all the sidekicks. They do the bits in between and they make everything he does work. And then he does all the hard work. At least that's kind of like how it pays off in previous movies. He does the impossible thing and makes it work. And, without giving spoilers, he does the impossible thing in this movie, but not all of them. There are very, very key vital moments that, like, if Benji, Simon Pegg's character, hadn't been there, they wouldn't have won. There's key moments in he delegates and shares the responsibility and huge level of trust in his co-characters, and it felt like there'd been growth in Ethan Hunt, and I really appreciate that. I don't know why. Ludicrous stunts, obviously, pushing the bounds of even what you expect from movies, but not outside the bounds of what you expect from Mission Impossible movie. It's like going to see a Fast and Furious franchise. You expect a car to be in space. You expect the car to do an impossible, in terms of physics, an impossible stunt jumping bridge to bridge, and, how people fall and land and twist, and, how torque works in cars and all that sort of stuff. Like, you expect that. And there's a certain level of disbelief that you will suspend, and or suspend belief, whichever way that works. I never remember which way that works. And for Mission Impossible and what the stunts they do, it was well within that. Just like pushing the bounds. There was one moment where I was just like, I really feel you wouldn't have survived that, but okay, it's Ethan Hunt. So, but I loved it. I really enjoyed it. It was a satisfying round out to the movies. All right, so as I said before, Thunderbolts inspired me to actually go back and watch some movies that I had skipped for whatever reason when they came out from the MCU. And one of them being, and again, apologies, I need to change my layout a little bit, apparently. I am covering up one of the Marvels here. I went to see the Marvels. I didn't obviously see it in the cinema, that's been and gone. So I watched it, I streamed it and watched it there. And here's, I have two thoughts about the movie. First off, I don't think the movie was that bad. I fully did not know what was going on initially. I don't understand how this young girl who's behind me, and apologies because I can't remember names. I'm terrible for characters and things like that. So I do apologize. You're going to get that sort of happening with me. I don't understand where her powers came from, how that worked. And I realized afterwards, that's because she appears in a television show that Marvel did. I'm like, oh, well, I didn't watch that. So this comes out of nowhere. I'm just like, oh, okay. And again, daughter over there of Carol's friend, whose name I also forget. I didn't realize she had powers either, and I don't know if that came from said TV show or if that came from something else, a cutscene somewhere that I have not seen at the end of a movie, like post credit or something. I don't know. So that the first thought here, like, this is where Marvel. I think they are producing movies that people are, oh, that was a flop, because they're making movies that require you to have watched the television shows. And I get that. Spread your audience, get them coming to you in multiple formats. I understand the idea behind that. They're not delivering it well because the movie that they're releasing here, and clearly spend a lot of money on the effects and budget there, is not small by any means whatsoever. But if you haven't seen the television show, if I'd gone and seen this in the cinema, hadn't watched the television show, hadn't bothered to pay any attention, research a little bit, whatever, I'd be like, huh? Who's just randomly going to pop people in with powers, give no explanation to their origin story or anything like that, and then just tell the story of the movie? I'm going to be lost. And I was. But I very, very quickly realized, hold up, I've missed something here. I'm watching movies out of sequence from when they were released or when you were meant to see them. And I was like, and I remember thinking there was a TV show or something to do with the Marvels. So At the time when it came out, the TV show, I didn't think it connected to the movie. And then about 10 minutes into the movie, I was like, this must connect to the TV show. So I had to just ignore that I didn't know the origin story and just roll with whatever information I was getting from the movie. Now, once I did that, the movie became more enjoyable for me as a response. Not that I was hating it, but I was like, I was lost to lack of information. Once I kind of just like moved on from how did these characters come to be in this position and just accepted the information in front of me as is, it became a much more enjoyable movie. I wasn't trying to nitpick things. So I will say, not a terrible movie, not one of the greatest, but not a terrible movie. Am I going to go and watch the TV show? I'm not sure. Maybe if I get really bored. I feel like having watched the whole movie now, I've picked up enough that I don't need to, or I could go read a blurb and that would be enough. I don't know. None of the actors were bad. Like it worked. The three of them, when they were figuring stuff out, it felt a little bit Guardians of the Galaxy vibe. And I don't know if that was the intent, but it felt like that. They were on a ship and they were practicing their powers. They're all connected and stuff like that. It's very weird, but it felt a little bit like that, and it worked. But I don't know whether Captain Marvel's never come across as Guardians of the Galaxy-esque. Although if she connected to any of them, really, that would be kind of the one Thor a little bit, I suppose. She's not really a stay on Earth kind of hero. As she said in Infinity War, like, not everyone has the Avengers, so I was out there doing other shit. That's why I wasn't here for Endgame. Or no, when she said that in Endgame, that's why I wasn't here for Infinity War. Sorry, totally mixed those up. So yeah, the movie, I liked it. It was okay. I'd give it like it was an average Marvel movie. Nothing special, nothing terrible. I wasn't here like when I finished. I was just like, okay, like I've learned some things. I've clearly missed some things in the television show, and like I said, I think that's where Marvel is like kicking itself in the teeth a little bit. Like, have the television shows, have your multiple formats. I'm down for that, but have them be expansions. Don't have them be the origins of a story that then your movie relies upon, because you're asking people at home to go and watch. The average movie viewer who wants to go see an MCU movie, you're asking them to, if they don't already, subscribe to your streaming service to watch the television show so that then you can understand the movie. And there's too much of an ask. And I feel like some of their movies have relied on that stuff. And if you're not a big fan of the television shows, if you're like, that's too much effort, or I don't want Disney Plus or whatever, then, people aren't going to do that. And the movies you're going to miss some things as a result, as I did with this. So yeah, an okay movie once you get past those things. So give that a go. Maybe read up on the Marvel's TV show if you haven't watched this, or if you have, go do that and see if it makes a difference. That was one of the other movies that Thunderbolts inspired me to see. And then the fourth movie I watched last month, which I was kind of like, I feel like I should have gone to the cinema to see this and just got busy and didn't. I was tempted. And then like the next time it was Thunderbolts, so I was like, I didn't. So I don't regret not seeing it, but I kind of wish I had seen it as well. And that was Captain America, Brave New World. Now, do I think Anthony Mackie is as good as Chris Evans at being Captain America? No, because he's not trying to be Chris Evans, Captain America. And there's something magical about Chris Evans, Captain America. Like, it's just, I'm Team Cap, by the way, if anyone's ever curious about that. But he is not trying to be Captain America, and he is, trying to figure out how to be what people expect him to be. And so I probably should have seen this in the cinema. I wanted to, I got busy, but I got around. I actually bought this movie. I was like, I'm going to buy it because I felt excited about watching it, honestly, and I gotta say, it didn't disappoint. Now, is this a 10 out of 10 movie? No. Are there things I liked about it? Yes. Are there things I didn't like about it? Absolutely. Is it what I expect from a Captain America movie? No, it's not. Like I say, you've got Chris Evans. Think of this as phase 2 Captain America. Ignore the other MCU phases. This is phase 2 Captain America. You've got phase 1, Chris Evans. Phase 2, Anthony Mackie. Okay. It's It's not the same at all. Now, I have watched a television show of how he became Captain America, like, you know, dealing with the suits and the expectations of people, and being a black man wearing the stars and stripes, and dealing with Isaiah, who was the lost captain, as he's been called in this movie. And that gave me a lot of setup for the movie. And like I've just said before, for Marvels, if I hadn't seen that, I'd have been a little lost. I'd have come into this expecting him to be a little bit more like Chris Evans' Captain America. I wouldn't have understood who Isaiah is. I wouldn't understand who his friends, his sort of co-guy who's going to be Falcon now that he is Captain America, even though they both have wings, which is this guy here on the left. He ends up being taking Falcon's suit and doing that, and while he's using Captain America combo suit with wings. But granted, like I said, the movie had some things I didn't like. What I really did like, and I'm getting on a trend apparently this month, is the trauma and the emotional connection. So what he's going through in this movie, yes, he's dealing with a huge amount of war stuff going on. He's dealing with a president who he didn't get along with for a long time because of the history of Hulk and all that sort of stuff. And the movie does try to tie in Eternals. I'm just gonna say that you'll see if you watch the movie, you'll understand what I mean. And it's not a terrible way to try and tie it in. And they're also trying to tie in the original Hulk movies with I was gonna say Eric Banner, but that's character's name. I forget the guy who plays him in the original movies. But like when we had Abomination and stuff like that appear, and it does it reasonably well, I have to say. All while we are dealing with this guy's just the weight he's put on his own shoulders, which you start to see in the television show and is now finished in the movie. And if you hadn't seen the television show, it would have felt weird in the movie. I think it would have felt like too much. Like, why are you so unsure of yourself? And Bucky pops in and gives like a little bit of emotional support stuff. It's that for me wins the movie. The tie-ins to the Hulk and the Marvels, there you're just trying to, like, you know, bring the story and some of the outlier movies and outlier moments back into the main trends, and hopefully those will pay off. Not necessarily the Hulk tie-ins, but the Eternals tie-in. Hopefully that pays off later on because of, you know, it sets up for, you know, one of their later movies that it seems to be coming. It sets up for the X-Men stuff. And that'll make sense if you go watch the movie. Again, I don't want to give major spoilers, but what really sold the movie for me was his journey in dealing with, how do I be Captain America? How do I be a super soldier and all that sort of stuff when I'm just a regular guy? And there's two moments that come in the same scene from Bucky when he's talking to Sam here. And firstly, he says, you know, Captain America, you know, Chris Evans' Captain America was great because he gave people something to aspire to. Okay, you know, like, he's a super soldier, but he was this guy, and like he went and did this, and he stopped, you know, Hydra twice, and all these different things. But what he says to Sam is like, but you inspire people instead. You know, they're not aspiring to go off and like, look, that's so inspiring, you know. And so the people are looking at him being like, he is a regular guy fighting against these, you know, multi-powered people. You know, like the end of the movie, I think we're aware of the end of the movie and who's in it. Like, he fights someone way out of his strength category. Now, granted, he has a very, very special suit from the Wakandans, and he has a vibranium shield. Those things help, obviously. At the end of the day, he's still a regular guy. Regular strength, regular agility. He has no super serum. And the whole bit that he's dealing with that was just really, really great to see. What did I not really enjoy about the movie? I would say that the whole Harrison Ford was fine, but he was trying to play someone else's character. And it didn't, I don't know if that landed as well for me. These two having not get along, that landed well for me. But Harrison Ford's, you know, he's trying to play the angry character from the original Hulks, because he plays the general, again, whose name eludes me right now. Just terrible for these names things. And it didn't, it just didn't. I get where they were going, but it didn't quite land for me. Harrison's a great actor, obviously, but it wasn't exactly what I wanted. And obviously the bad guy being, I never remember this character's name, but we've seen iterations of him in comics and all sorts of things. Suitably creepy from the original Hulk movie with Abomination and such. Suitably creepy. The way his story fit in, and how he was the bad guy, I liked. What'll come with him later on, I'm not sure. Yeah. So overall, an okay movie. Like I definitely didn't like it as much as Thunderbolts. I liked it more than Marvel's. It was fine. I say, if we hadn't had those moments of Sam trying to figure out his journey of how I be a superhero, I think it would have really just fallen down for me. But the moment, like I said, there was two moments just before. The second moment that really made it work for me, that I really, really, really loved, was a line that Bucky delivered to Sam that had absolutely nothing to do with the movie whatsoever. It was something that I was really happy to see just in a movie. And they're having a conversation, someone's been injured, and he's there looking at his friend, and Bucky's chatting to him, and then Bucky goes to go because, as I discovered in Thunderbolts, Bucky became a senator, and in Brave New World, he's running for the Senate. So I was like, okay, again, the things you miss. But he just turns around for no reason, just because he means it and he cares. He just says, "I love you, man." And it was just really, really beautiful to see two men in a room having a conversation in an awkward moment, in terms of like, I'm feeling this pressure and this and blah blah, and should have taken super serum, and how do I be a hero, and don't compare yourself to why can I not remember the character of Chris Evans? What is Captain America's real name? What is the character called? Anyway, don't compare yourself to him. That's not how it works. And he just wrapped that up by just telling him that he loved him, and I loved it. Thought that was brilliant. How beautiful it was, to just see on screen that one man can say to another without any ulterior motive, any sort of, whatever, just like, you're someone I care about, respect, and I love you. And I thought it was just, men should express their feelings, and I thought that was so awesome. So those are the movies that I watched in May. I hope you enjoyed my ramblings about them. I will be doing this every month at the beginning of the month, hopefully a lot sooner than 7 days in, but we'll see how we go. Got a couple of movies that I intend to see this month, at the very least, and I'm sure I'll end up watching some online that I haven't seen before, and such. So I hope you will come back for those ramblings. You can like the video, comment on what you thought, if you've seen these movies or not, whether I've encourage you to see them if you haven't, or whether you're like, Rob, you're talking out your ass, I really hated this movie, it's terrible. Or yes, go watch the Marvel's TV show, it makes it better. Whatever you want to say, it's fine. Throw it in the comment section. Like I say, I'll be doing this every single month. Please like the video, subscribe to the channel. If you want to get early access to these videos and other things like it, you can hop over to patreon.com and you can check out the perks that I have there, which revolve around the YouTube channel and my podcast as well, through Reeling. And that's it. So watch out for more of these. I'll be doing television show reviews. I've got a couple shows to catch up on because I'm doing lots of Wheel of Time stuff in the middle. That's the key component of this channel. But that's it. So yeah, maybe I'll get better at these. Maybe I'll be less rambly. Maybe I'll actually invent a rating system. I might have to do that. So I'll go back and figure it out. But yeah, thanks so much, folks, and I'll see you next time.